Hello, John Talley here with Partzilla.com, and as you can see, we've been doing some work on our 2005 Honda CRF450R. Now today, we're going to focus in on the front forks. Now you probably can't see it from there, but trust me, these seals are in dire need of replacement. So let's step over to the table and look at the parts and the tools we're going to use to straighten this out. All right, guys, we're going to make it really simple for you. What I've chosen is a comprehensive kit from PivotWorks. It has all the different bushings, the O-rings, the seals, everything that you're going to need to fully rebuild these forks. Now, as far as the special tools, it's really not that long of a list, but you will need a top nut cap removal tool, a bearing driver, and then a dampener rod holder. Now, if you don't have a dampener rod holder, you can get away with using a wrench. I think a 13 millimeter will do it in a pinch. But if you're going to be doing this on a regular basis, you might want to invest in one with multiple diameters to where you can use it on different machines. Now, the other thing that you want to get a hold of is something to hold the forks. Now, I will be using a unit from Motion Pro. This is one of the best ones I've ever worked with, and you can get the soft clamps that you can put in a regular vise, but this just makes it so much easier, and it even has a tray to help you minimize the amount of mess that you're going to make. Well, now that we've got our parts and our tools lined up, give me a couple of minutes to get those forks off, and then we'll dive into this. All right, guys, before we get started, I'm going to spend a little bit of time and get the bottom of the fork tube cleaned up, because the name of the game here is keep everything clean. All right. So step one, we're going to adjust the compression and the rebound dampeners all the way back. And if you did have yours tuned, you'd want to count how many turns you have to come out. Now, has this one been tuned? I kind of doubt it, but we'll count them nonetheless and then write that number down. 3.5 on the rebound. 4. 4.5. Actually, I probably should have been counting the clicks, but you know, that'll get us in the ballpark when we go to retune it. All right, first we're going to position it in the clamp where it would be on the lower part of the fork clamps on the machine, because what we're going after is that top cap. Now, if you don't own any type of vise that can safely hold this, you probably want to go ahead and break that loose when it's still in the triple clamps on your bike. There we go. All right, we've got it broken loose. Let's temporarily just take it down to the seal. That's what I'm going to do next. Let's flip it around and then go ahead and drain it. I'd say that this one's been leaking for a while, because I know it holds a lot more than that. Actually, the fluid doesn't look that bad. I have changed them out before where it looked like motor oil, and this stuff is basically supposed to be clear. So this isn't horrible. Somebody had done some work on these, or at least replaced the fluid, but if they replaced the seals, they couldn't have done it right, because there's no way it should leak as much as it is up there. Now, we're going to go ahead and temporarily install this back. Go to the bottom end of the fork, loosen it, and then get that dampener rod bolt off. This is a 21 millimeter, and yes, it's got a lot of torque on it. Now, what we're hopefully going to do is push this up and get this slider in there. It is kind of spring-loaded, so this will take a fair amount of energy. All right, she's holding it in place. Now we need to hold this still to break this loose. So our lock nut down at the bottom is a 17. Of course, the top's 21. Let's see if we can get it to break loose. There we go. Now go ahead and tell you now, as we're pulling this apart, lay it down in order so you'll have a clear picture of how it goes back together. But if you get lost, go to our website and look at the exploded parts diagram. That way, that can be your guide back in case you make a mistake. Let's see if we can reach in there and get that push rod. Yep. Be very careful with this. All right, now we can push back up and release that plate. Now we can spin it around, remove the cap, and then pull out the damper assembly. There we go. Whoop. All right, let's spin it around one more time. Remove our spring, and then we'll get the tubes separated. There we go. All right. Let's grab a hold of it there. Okay. First, let's get our dust ring out. There we go. And next, we want to reach in and grab our stopper ring, which is going to be right here. There we go. Now, all I have to do is pull it apart. There she goes. Before we take this out of the clamp, let's go ahead and give it a quick spray. That way it'll have plenty of time to dry sitting to the side. So next, let's bring over our fork dampener and disassemble it. This is a very well thought out vise. All right, guys, we've got it clamped in place, and we're going to use this part of the tool to grab it right there and then break it loose. Ah, there it is. She's free. Now, let's see if we can work it out carefully. Now, we can finish emptying out the inner part of oil. There we go. All right, guys, we've got everything laid out and cleaned up reasonably well. All the replacement pieces are laid out in order, and I would recommend doing it one bit at a time, laying them out, make sure it matches up, and then start replacing them, starting at the bottom and working your way up, depending on which piece of equipment that you're working with. We'll go ahead and start with the fork tube. We're going to remove our bushings, our washer, our seal, our locking clip, and then our dust cover. Now, to get the bushings off, you can just use a screwdriver, turn it, and that'll open it up. Now, it's very important that you take your time doing this and do not scratch the fork tube itself. You can compare these two and tell that this one was starting to get a good bit worn, especially on that bottom edge. Now we can take our seal. Now, it is my opinion that someone had already been into this fork, but I think that they installed this seal incorrectly or didn't have it taped over or used any type of bullet, and I think it was damaged when they crammed it on, because that edge right there, if you force it, it's going to cut your seal, and I bet you that that is what happened to this one. Clean it up one more time, especially up at the top, because we're going to be using electrical tape to protect the seal and the dust cover from these edges. Now is also your last chance just to check over the tube itself and make sure there's no damages or grooves or any type of surface deviations that are going to prematurely wear out the seals. Now all of these get replaced, but these two get reused. Now, as we're installing these seals and everything else, we want to put a light coat of our suspension fluid on the tube to make it easier to install. All right, let's put a little bit more on the inside lip of our dust seal and then wiggle it on. Now this is strictly up to you to choose which oil that you like. I'm going to go back with the 5-weight that came out of it, and I'm using the Pro Honda suspension fluid. I mean, there's a bunch of different manufacturers out there, so just pick one that you like that's in the 5-weight range and go with it. Now, if you're fighting in the heavyweight division like I am, you may want to consider stepping it up to a 7, maybe even a 10-weight, but I'm going to go back with 5-weight. Now, our main seal. So the orientation for this particular seal, it looks a little bit different than the OEM. It has a raised section that will be facing down, and this recessed area will be facing up. Now, if you want to learn more about fork oils and how they operate and the different viscosities, we have a video for that. So if you would, check the link in the description below and it'll take you straight to it. Be very careful working it on. Now, next we can get in our backup ring. Now we can go and remove the tape as we're ready to put in the bushings. Our larger bushing. And we're going to bring this one in. And it goes back on the opposite of the way you took it off. Take a screwdriver, open it up enough just to clear the fork, and then walk it on, being careful not to scratch it. There we go. Until you hear that click, it's not seated, but that was the sound I was looking for. And we're going to set that to the side and concentrate on our damper. Let's start on this end. O-ring, second O-ring. We're just walking them off. And when you walk them off, make sure that they match up with what you had laid out. Now they're going to be stretched out a little bit more because, well, they're older and the new ones should be just a tick smaller. We take off the two bushings the same way we did on the fork tube. Now here's where I hope you have a good editor that makes you look like you know what you're doing. I'm not going to have any fingernails by the time I'm done with this. There we go. We'll go ahead and get off that last O-ring the opposite direction. Now, one word of caution here. I've been using contact cleaner for cleaning up most of this. Now, if you're doing that, make sure it doesn't come into contact with any of the O-rings that you plan on reusing, because it will make them swell up and not fit correctly. This is our old stuff. Let's move that out of the way so we don't confuse the two. Now, let's install the new O-rings. Take your time doing this. There we go. One more. I'm just going to keep the bushings 180 degrees apart from where their ends are, kind of like you would a piston ring. There she is. Don't forget the little O-ring on the bleed screw. All right, let's go ahead, reinstall our bleeder screw, and then we're going to apply fork oil to both of these bushings as well as all three of the O-rings. All right guys, we're almost through replacing the individual pieces. We've got one more bushing on the dampener tube. There we go. And we're just going to put a little bit of fork oil on it, and that's it. And then an O-ring up at the top. Another O-ring on the lower cap, and then we will be through replacing all the internal pieces. Now we want to clean this up before we put the O-ring on, because as I said, you don't want to get contact cleaner or brake cleaner on O-rings. All right, now let's go ahead and get our O-ring on. All right guys, now we've replaced all of the internal pieces and we're just about ready for reassembly, although we do have to install our wear ring on the outer edge of the fork tube. So let me throw these out and then we're going to start putting this together. Let's go ahead and get this wear ring while I'm thinking about it. Let's go ahead and bring in our inner tube. Make sure you've got some fork oil on the whole tube, especially on the bushings we're about to install. All right, hold that thought for a minute. Grab our bearing driver. Really cool design that Motion Pro has with this. See how it's locked in right now? We rotate that collar or the collars around and now it separates. Bring it back together. Rotate the collars, and now it's locked onto it. Now we're going to drive it in until it bottoms, and you'll know it because the sound will change a little bit. There it is. Now, take it back off. Bring down our main seal, and then we'll drive it in. You'll hear that same sound, plus you'll see that it's below where this ring needs to go to hold it all together. That's it. Now let's walk our snap ring in, and you'll hear it click in when it seats. There's 1, 2, 3. Now your dust seal, you can push it in with your fingers, or should be able to. All right, fork tube's ready to go. We'll get it out of the way and start working on the damper assembly. Step number 1, we're going to fill up our inner dampener with 195 cm cubed, or milliliters, of fork oil. And it's going to be the 5 weight that we're going to use. We're going to pull the dampener rod all the way down. And I do want to make mention that this is an 05, and the manual called for that 195 number. If it was An '06, one of the later models, that drops down to 190, I believe. All right, let's bring it through its stroke a couple of times. You can actually hear it when it's drawing it in and pushing out the air. When you don't hear that anymore, you've got it. Now, if you didn't put exactly 195 milliliters in there, it's not that big of a deal, because that's basically just a starting point. Once we attach the dampener assembly, we'll go through a bleeding process where it will purge off the amount that it needs to, which is going to be around 15, 16 milliliters, somewhere in that neighborhood. All right, she's starting to quieten down now. All right, I'm just concentrating on the last 4 inches now to work the rest of the air out. I think we're there. Now we've measured it, we've got everything where we think it should be. There's one more way we can test this. On the outer edge, there's a shelf where it steps in, and you can measure it from the bottom of that shelf up to wherever the level it is. So we're just going to use a zip tie, pop it out, and that's our mark. And then what we're looking for is somewhere in between 1.65, a little over 1.5, and 1.85 inches. So we're right at 1 3/4, so that's toward the upper end of where the level should be. So we know we've got it. All right, next let's get some oil on our dampener assembly. The bushings, the O-rings, all 3 of them. Let's go ahead and wiggle her into position. There we go. Slow in, otherwise it'll make all that oil pop out. Now you will need to use your 6-point wrench to push down it a little bit, because we are compressing those springs on the dampener. Touchdown. All right, guys, we need to torque this to 22 foot-pounds, and the real trick is to find an adapter that we can attach out here to put the torque on it, and you have to be at 90 degrees for the torque wrench to work accurately. So this will need to be like this when I go to tighten it. There we go. All right, guys, what we're going to do next is continue the bleeding procedure. And now that we've got the actual dampener cartridge installed, we want to put it through its stroke, but just the first 4 inches. That's as much as we want to do. We're extended all the way right now, so we just want to bring it up 4 inches, then release it. And do this several times. You want to do this slowly, because that's purging the rest of the air out and getting it into the valves of the dampener. All that sounds right and it feels right. Very linear. I don't feel anything catching anywhere. All right, guys, here's what's going to happen next. We're going to make sure that we're adjusted all the way to the soft setting, which we are. And we're going to take it out of the clamp over to the table to a soft surface, and we're going to run it through its full stroke a couple of times. Now, what that is going to do is force out some of the excess fluid, roughly 15 to 18 milliliters or centimeters cubed. And once we do that, the bleeding procedure should be complete, and we just need to get rid of that excess oil or fluid through these 2 drain holes. Now, if you do have compressed air, go ahead and blow it out to get that last little bit out of there. There we go. All right, let's get our slider back into the clamp. Next, let's go ahead and bring our fork spring. Let's see, If we can get that dampener rod pushed back through. Make sure that your locking nut or collar is backed up all the way, which it is. It doesn't have to be hard, just needs to be seated all the way in. Now, we can bring in our damper. Don't force it, but it's important that you do get it lined up correctly before it'll pass through. There we go. Now we'll get our holder ready. This takes a pretty good bit of muscle. There we go. Make sure there's oil on this O-ring. Install our push rod. And with this bottomed out, we should see a gap of about 1.5 to 2 millimeters. That's what we've got. And now we're going to bring up the lock nut to engage the center bolt. All right, they're engaged. Now we're going to torque these two together to 16 foot-pounds. You really want to hold the top center bolt still and just turn the wrench at the bottom. See how I did that? So you don't want this to move. You're just moving the lock nut. Otherwise, you're going to damage your push rod. Now let's release it. Now we're going to bottom out the center nut, and then we're going to torque it to 51 foot-pounds. Now let's reposition this. All right, guys, I'm going to take it back to the standard fill level, which is going to be right at 382. I'm going to take it to 385. Now, if you're wanting a little bit different feel out of your setup, you may want to go higher or lower. I'm just going to put it back to the factory spec. Let's close her up. Now we need to torque this to 25 foot-pounds. Now you can wait and do this when you get it reattached to the bike if you don't have a clamp. But since I do, I'm going to go ahead and do it here. Once again, we just want to make sure we are at 90 degrees when we do this. Now, let's go ahead and do our setting. Let's get it back to where we started. Back it all the way out, then go in. And of course, you know it's each click if you truly want to be accurate. I just counted the turns in and out when we took it apart, but this should get it back in the ballpark. That was probably 10 clicks in. And we're going to do roughly 3.5 turns on the rebound. 1, 2, 3.5. All right, guys, that's one down, one to go. The other side is the exact same procedure, even have the same part number. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this video, although there is still a lot of work that still needs to be done to this particular machine. And speaking of machines, if you need any parts for yours, why don't you come see us at Partzilla.com and we can get you taken care of. If you have any questions or comments about this video, leave them in the section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And hey, if you like what you see and you want to see me continue on this, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll be notified and you'll know what I'm working on next, whatever that might be. Well, listen, we just want to say thank you for shopping here with us at Partzilla, and we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.